Okay, I'm turning on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, did you want to figure out the sentence grammar you were working on?
Yes, I would like to do that. Need to open the thing. This one? I think this is the right one. Okay, this was the wrong one. Open. What? Okay, I forget. Or I can't seem to find it, so
Well, it's in Discord.
yeah.
Okay, so the place you should start in this case that's going to work well is figuring out what stuff and joins together.
Okay, so like the joint makes English simple. Okay, so I think it like makes English simple to something else. I'm not sure I know how and works. It's like makes English simple, which seems like an extra thing. Yeah, I'm gonna just do that.
Okay, here's another way to look at it. Makes English simple is incomplete by itself. Like if that was a sentence by itself, it wouldn't work, right?
Oh yeah, it wouldn't have a subject. It would
Right.
be like an action verb with no subject.
Yeah, so what is the subject of makes?
What is the subject? Article. Because
Yeah,
like the article is the one that's doing the making of English. That's kind of how I did it at first.
okay, so we have this article, something, and makes English simple. And what is the previous part?
Okay, what was the previous major concepts? Okay, so it's like explaining what this article is doing, like focuses on major concepts. That
Yeah.
feels like it might be some kind of preposition.
Well, what is focuses?
I don't know.
Can you write some sentences with it?
Okay. Huh. That seems like a verb. Okay.
Try
More
another sentence.
Focuses. Okay. Some things I'm trying to do are like it focuses. Wait. Hey, that's focuses. Focuses. Like what to focus is just focus, which is easier to think of things with, but focuses is harder. That's like just a normal focus.
Mm-hmm. So, in all of these sentences, what is focus?
It seems like a verb.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like if focuses, like subject
So,
focuses, like does
the
the focusing.
sentence has two verbs.
Huh. Okay, so it's the two verbs.
So, the article focuses and makes. It's doing two things.
Hmm. Okay, focuses and me. Huh. Okay, so does two verbs make it harder? What?
Okay. So, normally a tree starts with the verb, but we have two verbs, so we need to and them together.
Yeah, I think I remember kind of doing this with you once. I forget exactly how it worked.
The groups the and is joining are group 1 and group 2.
Okay, so if you just have focuses on major concepts, makes English simple. Those are like two action phrases, or like they're
Uh-huh.
action verbs, but they don't have a subject. So like the and is making it so you can have like two action sentences, which share the same subject.
Yes.
Huh. Okay, then like, how do you do this though? Okay, so we did the verbs. Now I want to do the subject. I'm not sure where this would
Okay.
go.
So
It feels like it might be stand.
in general, when you join things with and, they should both be the same type of thing. So if we're joining makes, which is a verb, then we should be joining it with another verb.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Join makes with
Whereas
another
if
verb.
it's a noun phrase, then we'll look to join it with other noun phrases.
Okay, what's a noun phrase again? It's a phrase that has a noun. I'm not sure.
It's a phrase where the whole phrase as a whole acts as a noun. So it would have a noun in it, but it could also have modifiers. So the noun would be the parent,
I don't know
the
how to spell.
highest node.
Okay, Thomas, uh, pink, and like, wait, I might be messing this up. I'm trying to write Thomas and then like modifiers for it, and then I think would be like a noun phrase. Like Thomas,
Pink
I
Big
don't know how to
Thomas.
spell that name. Yeah, so that would be like a noun phrase.
Yeah, those three nodes.
And
Okay, so you
it
need
could
the
also be a
subject
noun phrase.
article for the verbs. There's two different
Subject.
ways you can do it. Way number one, you can put article, and you can put article, like implied. You know, it's implied that the makes has article as well.
I'm
This
not
is
sure what.
not what?
Oh, right. Article is in the literal word. I thought it might have been a grammar thing.
Oh, no, just the word. It's the
Oh,
subject of the sentence. So you
yeah.
can put it under the verbs. This is not my favorite option, but hopefully it makes sense to you.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, both of these need the subject article, so like, I guess we can, huh,
Yeah, so you can put it in the tree twice, and then you'll see what's going on.
yeah. subjects.
Alright, however,
Ooh.
we have here a tree which functions as a verb because it's a group of verbs. So
Yeah.
what I
This
prefer to
is
do is make the subject be a child of the whole tree, and then we only have to have it once.
okay. That makes sense. Okay, so you only have to have it once, and grammatical subject. And these are verbs. And then this. Okay, and then this like applies to everything else here. So if we somehow like added another verb,
Yeah.
then like the article would also, the subject would also apply to it.
Yep. He ran, jumped, and swam. Then you have
Yeah.
he
So
applying with 3 verbs.
yeah. Okay, so like ran. Okay, so it's, and he ran, jumped, and swam. Is the swam connecting all three, or is it seems like something weird's happening there. It feels like it only connects two, and then there's one extra that has to be added.
Yeah, so that is a list. You've seen lists before with nouns. I bought eggs, milk, cheese, and bread. Yeah, there's only one and, but there's 4 things.
Yeah. Okay. Eggs, milk, cheese, and bread. Okay. So you have like four things, but only one and. So if it was like I bought like eggs, and then you could do and milk and cheese and bread. So this is kind of what it would look like if you just added an and after everything, but then you can like make a list. Then it would look different.
Oh, so you could write I bought eggs and milk and cheese and bread. But we wanted to make this shorter, so we
Yeah.
only say the and once.
Huh. Okay. So like ran uh so you can like add a lot of fucking verbs.
Yeah, there's no limit.
Okay. So I'm not sure how to add the list with
In
the
a
and.
tree,
Yeah.
you just put and then you put them all under it.
Hmm.
The single and is grouping together all of those verbs.
Okay. It's grouping together. Okay, so I think it. And then like
Can you get new nodes by hitting enter?
enter and.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And if you
Okay, I
hit
do that.
tab afterwards, you can go down. You hit enter, you can go sideways. Is that right?
Enter just adds more. So I guess
Yeah.
I could like type something, enter, double enter, type something. Okay, so that works. Okay, so
You don't have to go back up to the parent node with the arrow keys or whatever.
yeah. Huh. Okay. Okay, so you can have a sentence with a lot of verbs like this.
Yeah, if you're gonna put the he under the and, I'd recommend putting a label on it because it's not part of the group,
Did you
right?
recommend what?
Putting a label.
So like subject.
Yeah, because the and is grouping together these ones. And then this one over here is doing something else. We're using it in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to put something that indicates that it's not the same as all the other ones.
Okay. Same as all the. It's like it seems like these all might be the same, but then it's
Right.
like, oh no, wait, these are all verbs, but like this one specifically is a subject.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now that you have the beginning of this tree, can you figure out the rest of it?
Okay. Okay. So, subject, object, object, concepts. Uh, hmm. Okay, so he's focusing on the concepts. We're not anding the concepts. I was thinking of maybe putting the concepts under and, but then I was like, we're not making and focusing on the concepts. We're just focuses concepts. So, mhm. So it's like article focuses concepts. Then it would be like article makes English. Okay, so there's two objects, I guess. Okay, so I think I did the objects, then like which article? This major concepts. Makes English simple. Is that all the words?
There is one more word.
Okay, major concepts makes English simple. Okay, did the article. This focuses. Oh. Where is the on go? Okay, focuses on
You know what type of word on is?
preposition.
Yep, and do you know how those work?
Not sure. They like, oh, they modify the verb.
Not
Mm,
exactly.
no.
They can create a modifier for anything. It doesn't have to be a verb.
Okay. So like simple in a way. Makes it simple in a way, not like exactly simple. It's kind of simple in a way. It's like the preposition is modifying an adjective, I think. It's
You think the
modifying a
on
particle.
modifies simple?
No. You can't see my atom, I think.
Oh, simple in a way. Yes, that would be the type of simpleness. So then it would modify simple. I agree with you.
Okay, so yeah, he can modify things. On. Okay, so
And
the
what's the other
on.
key thing about a preposition? It modifies something and
It needs a
does it?
noun, I think.
Yeah, it needs a noun.
Okay,
There's always a prepositional object. It's noun.
preposition. Is a noun. Okay, so like how a verb can have an object, the preposition needs to have an object.
Yep.
So like there's the verb object, and then there's the preposition object.
Yeah.
Okay, concept. That seems like it would be his noun, his object.
Yep.
Okay,
That is the
then
noun that comes after on.
I think then on is like the object of focuses. I'm not exactly sure how that works.
Uh,
There's something
well,
about
if it's a
verbs and
modifier, it's not an
prepositions.
object. An object is a noun.
Okay.
But there doesn't have to be an object. Objects are optional.
Oh, right, with action things. You can just be like, he ate.
Yeah.
So it needs like, oh, yeah, it's like article focuses, and that might be fine.
And you can have he ate on his way to the store. So you have he ate with no object and then a prepositional phrase.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't need a thing. What do you call the thing? Focuses doesn't need a object. If it was like is or something, then it would need a complement. I'd like to try that works. Maybe two different.
Okay, there's one more problem, but it's kind of advanced. But simple is not a regular adjective modifying English. Something else is going on
Oh,
there. If it's a regular
okay.
adjective, it would say simple English. This article focuses on simple English, like something like this.
Wait, so
Right?
would simplified be an adjective? English simplified?
You could have simplified English. The issue is not the word. See, in this sentence, simple is an adjective modifying English.
Okay, start
But when you
simple.
have an adjective, it goes before the noun. It's to the left of the noun, like red, car, car
Huh.
red. You don't say car red.
Yeah. Makes English simple.
So, um, yeah, simple can be an adjective that modifies English, but if it was, it would go before English instead of after.
Go before English. Okay, so like, huh.
Just like
So how
red
does that
car,
work?
not car red.
Is that like with all adjectives for a noun? Do they like all go to the left in general?
Yeah.
Maybe always?
Yeah, I think they don't do it 100% of the time because there are foreign languages that have adjectives afterwards, and then we import stuff from foreign languages, so we make weird exceptions. And the other thing you can do is you can use the word of, so you can have like um a field of green
Mm-hmm.
or a green field. So you can put the adjective afterwards if you connect it with of.
Yeah. Like a field of flowers. A flower field.
Yeah, we do that a lot, like a sword of smiting. You see it in RPG games when they're naming their
Oh yeah.
items.
I remember you said something about like they kind of just have random number generators or something to like select words, and if you add the of, it's like more compatible or something.
Oh, well, yeah, they have a prefix and a suffix. So they'll have a sword,
Prefix.
and they want to have one modifier that goes before it and one that goes after it. The two
Yeah.
modifiers, like fierce and smiting, don't get in each other's way because they're on opposite sides of the word. So instead of making like a fierce, cruel sword, where there's two modifiers before it and none after, or a sword of smiting of holiness, where there's two after, they do one and one. So you got fierce sword of smiting.
Mm.
Okay, so anyways, the makes part is a problem. The makes English simple.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the simple goes. My initial guess is it goes next to English, like it's a sibling of English.
Yeah, so this is one of the options, and this says essentially that makes has two objects, English and simple. It's a special case.
Mm.
Simple would actually be a complement, not an object, but whatever. Um,
So
however,
is makes a linking verb?
no,
Huh. Okay,
because
so
it has the object English. Making something is an action. Um,
keep something
so then simple would be called
right.
the object complement, which
Huh.
is an extra thing that then modifies the object. So it would link English with simple, but like the main thing makes has is an object, English. So it's still an action verb. However, there's a different way to do it. Um, so uh, I suspect that there's an implied word, that this is a shortcut where there's a
English
word being
be
left out because we've said it lots of times, and so people started skipping a word.
huh.
So you can make it make sense if you do it like this. And you add the missing word back in, which is be. So it makes English be simple.
So English should be
So this is a non-standard view that I haven't seen anywhere else, but this is my best guess about how it actually works. Because the standard view is they're like,
yeah.
it's a special case, we'll just make up a new thing, give it a new name, and then say it's that.
It's a special
And
case.
I'm like, that's not super satisfying, so.
Yeah. This seems like more principled and like there are rules, we just kind of skip them.
Yeah, so I figure we're just leaving a word out, and that's why it works.
Huh.
Okay, so that is the grammar tree. I think you should do this sentence as well. Try this
Okay.
one for practice.
Um, bye tree.
I'll put it in tutoring. I wouldn't delete your trees, by the way. I'd just like leave them all in the file forever and have a big file. Have you seen my file? See how much
Uh,
stuff is built up?
I
Just
just
keep
keep
it all.
making new ones because what's the reason? Okay, I make new ones. Uh, oh yeah, because it's annoying to do the double click and then it's a thing and yeah.
Uh, so you could try different tree
That's too much
software.
better.
You
Okay.
should try other apps at some point if this one's annoying you.
Hmm. I don't think it's too bad. I don't think I'm very used to it in that I can get better. Yeah. If I double click that. No. Okay, so then what was the new sentence? There. Okay. 8. Ah, 8. And then subject. He. Okay, and he ate is fine. And then you can have on on something. It's like he ate, and then there's like some continuation thing. Okay. His way to the store. Uh, 2. Okay, I'm not sure about his because that seems like another subject thing. And it seems
What
kind of
is
weird.
his doing in the sentence? You figure out what its function is, like what information it gives you?
Uh, is
Like
that
what if you
called
deleted it?
a possessive?
Yes. So what is it? What does it tell us?
Mm, it tells us that it's his way to the store. This way to the store is his.
Yeah, so like the type of way or whose way it is.
Huh.
So what part of speech is that?
Okay, what part of speech Wait, I'm not sure. I feel like the answer is possessive, but I already said that, so I'm not sure what
So is
is.
it a noun?
Is it a noun? Is. Okay, what's a noun? A noun is a thing that like exists or is like a concept. So he would be a noun. It's like telling us like a person. Like wall is a noun. It's like physical thing. Okay. His. That seems more like kind of uh not actual thing. It's like telling us a detail about it, but it's not like necessarily a real thing, I don't think. Yeah, so I
Okay,
don't think
well,
it's a noun.
alright, what about a verb?
Verb. Okay, what is a verb? It is the. Okay, trying to remember what a verb is. I feel like I might have forgot. Like main part of a sentence, you can have action verbs or linking verbs. The action verbs like tell us what kind of action is happening in this sentence. It's like in this sentence, the action is going to be ate, and the action needs like the subject, so we need to like know who's doing or what's doing the action. It's like the action is ate, and then it was like he who is doing the aiding, or it could be like giant monster mecha spider did the eating. Okay, so the verb like tells us can like tell us about what action is happening.
Yeah, there's two types of verbs, actions and linking. So is his one of those things?
And the linking. His does not seem like an action, and I
Okay.
don't think it's linking. I am kind of bad at linking. The only linking thing I know is the B.
Is it B? Is this one of the 8 forms of B?
Uh, I don't think. Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can remember them. Okay, so there's B is are was were uh okay,
Write
I
them
got the
down as
five.
you go.
Okay, so like is are was were uh also B.
Okay, that's 5.
Mm. Okay, so there's current, past, and future, I think. Wait, how common
Yeah,
is like future tense? Will? That would be
yeah,
like
it
kind
uses
of.
well, don't worry about it. Okay, so you need past and present, and you need first person, third person, and second person, like
This
I,
is third for
or you, or Joe.
second, third, and like.
You have like Joe is, have I, you, are, Joe is, I, question mark. You're missing one here.
Okay. I, Joe.
So you are cool. Joe is cool. I, what word goes before cool?
Okay. Like, you can have am and was. Okay, so RM was. Seems like this. Okay, so
Am,
R
yes, that's the word.
M.
I am cool.
I guess like currently B is. Those are like current. I'm not exactly sure about B though. Uh, okay, and then like
These are all
past
present. Am, are, is.
am are it. You are something. I am something. He is something. Yeah.
Your
Was and
past
were are
tense
like
ones are was and were. Those are the past.
yeah. Okay, not sure what B is. That's just gonna stay here.
Yeah, so you've got the main ones, and then there's three weird ones, which is B, and then there's the two other ones that sound similar to B.
Uh, being.
Yeah,
Huh. Okay, so that seems like an 8. Yeah, so 6 plus 2. That's gonna be an 8.
yeah, so his is not B.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it a conjunction?
What's a conjunction? There's
Joins things together like and.
on his way to store in his car. Wait, that's in. The in became the like on his way to store in his car. That's in is gonna be the wait. In is a preposition, not a conjunction. Okay, so conjunction connects things like and does. So like cool and awesome and bad.
Yeah, is it like that?
Uh, I don't think so. I don't feel like there's a way I can do that with his. Okay, let's try to replace and with his, because I'm completely stuck trying to get his to be like a conjunction. So just replacing and might be closer. Okay, so
I bought eggs, his milk, his cheese, his bread.
okay, eggs. Yeah, those all seem like possessives, like it's describing what milk it is. It was like his
Uh-huh.
milk.
Okay, so that's not a conjunction. Is it a preposition?
Preposition. No, it seems like a modifier.
Yes, modifier. It is a modifier. And do you know whether it's an adjective or an adverb?
Uh, I'm gonna say it doesn't affect the verb. I'm gonna say, or okay, it can definitely affect nouns. So like his cheese, his milk, his bread. It's like
Uh-huh.
telling us which breads they are. Uh, I'm not sure if adverbs can do that. I think there's something about adverbs being able to do that. I forget exactly.
Do you remember what the definition of an adjective or an adverb is?
Hmm. No.
Okay, adjective equals noun modifier. Adverb equals non-noun modifier.
Huh. Okay. So you can have an adverb for an adjective as well.
Yes. So which one is his?
Which one is his? Adjective.
Yes.
Action. Join word like. Okay, so with is a conjunction.
With is a preposition.
Uh, wi- if you do like which, lettuce. I already did lettuce. How many things can you put on a sandwich? Okay, here it seems like the and is doing the conjunctioning, not the with.
Yes, the and is joining the list together.
Okay. Okay, not sure what this one's doing.
It's a preposition. This is a prepositional phrase is a preposition plus a noun. It's modifying sandwich, telling us what type of sandwich.
Okay, so with the last one, I think and would be the child of with, and then all of
Yes.
these extra things go under and.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
with, and then the noun that the sandwich is with is the group of all those nouns combined together.
Huh. I guess like. The sandwich is gonna be with.
Yep, that's correct. There are other ways people do and in trees, but this is the one I prefer.
Huh. How else can you do and? Wait, there's some. Remember you once showed me another way to do and, I think.
Okay, take bread and move it right
Bread.
there under the with. Then take and move it under the bread.
Huh.
Yeah, some people do that. They treat the and like kind of like a modifier. You have the first thing, and then you have and then it adds on the other things.
Wait, so would it work? So like, I want a sandwich with bread and meat and lettuce and tomato. Wait, I'm using a bunch of ands. Okay, automatically did ands for everything because I started with an and. I want a sandwich with bread and lettuce, tomato, cheese, meat. It seems kind of weird to say. Like either you do the ands all the way, or
Yeah, the whole way
that.
or just at the end is normal.
Okay. Okay. Now what else are we doing?
Gigahurt
Seems
discussion.
okay. Save. Okay.
Yeah, so first thing, Gigahurt wrote a response to the second video.
Yeah. Is it 20%? Has. Wait. Start.
Okay, I gave you the link. Get the page open somewhere. Other monitor's fine.
Yeah.
Links in tutoring. Save this, close it.
No, I'd already had it open.
Okay, so here's what he said. I watched the second video. Thank you for the continued critique. I'm learning a lot. I'll skip my impressions for now to keep the tree manageable. So what do you think of that response?
I think he still could have gave impressions, and then like if you don't want to do the whole tree, you can just like skip it maybe.
Yeah, that's what I thought is he could still say some stuff. Like he did here, and like most of the stuff doesn't really need to go in the tree anyways.
Yeah.
So he can make a few comments if he wants to. He doesn't have to, but it would be okay. Anyway, sounds good. He's learning things.
Yeah.
Okay,
M.
so we did this, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we did my response.
Showing off. Huh. Yeah. Okay. So where's the?
There's 3 more messages, but they're long, long, and even longer.
Huh. Looks spooky.
Well, it just takes a while to go through everything. Look how much we went through. We went through this, and down to here. So, like, oh, a little over 2.5 pages.
Huh. Okay.
We made a bunch of tree so far. So, more text just means more tree. It doesn't really get harder. You just keep adding things. You know?
Huh.
So if you could do this, you could do, twice as much.
Huh.
Okay. So this time I thought I would go faster and make the tree, and you could ask questions and see how I do it. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. I'm worried I won't ask questions or understand what you're doing.
Okay, well, I'll try to stop and check. Okay, so this sentence I already did. He says, I appreciate the distinction you draw between 1 and 2, and I agree I only hit on
Okay.
items from 2.
Right. The 1 and the 2 is like the rationally doing or rational. Okay, 1 is like the points about having a rational conversation partner, and 2 is about like
Yeah, so
uh
this is number 1 and this
it
is number
appeals to
2.
bad ones. Okay. There's the qualities that make good one, primarily about rationality, and qualities that uh
People want.
people want
Yeah, 1 is what's
is
good and 1 is what do people want.
yes, like what is good and what do people actually truly want.
Yeah, so I said there's 2 different things. He said he agreed, so I just wrote a really simple paraphrase.
Okay, that seems good. Like yeah,
Okay.
you can just do like a quick thing.
Okay. And he thinks they're both important.
Uh, okay, so if you agree only hit on items from 2, the only addition I make feed into a single system where both are essential.
Yeah, they're both important and they both they work together in some way. Like you can't just separate them as if they were completely different topics. He's saying like both of them come up in a conversation. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess like should they come up would be like no, I think. Uh, but in current world, are they of course going to come up with like effectively everyone? Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, that was a bit harsh, but we could at least improve what we want from discussions. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement there.
Nice. Okay.
But we're never going to be perfect. Like you shouldn't try to imagine utopia or something. Like where we're done learning anything.
Hmm.
Okay. So he thinks that they're also I agree and the I'll just leave it. The 2 types are connected. Okay. I agree with
Okay.
that.
First way I was thinking of doing it was like I agree, and then like under that, like in detail, like both are important.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
not really a detail of his agreement. I took it more as just a comment on this thing.
okay, are they
Like
like
he
individual
could have said this
comments?
without saying this. Right? You could have like one or
Yeah,
the other.
so if you like think of it as a like, you can just say I agree and stop there, or you can be like both of these are completely different, or they aren't different at all. They're both exactly the same. Like I agree, and both of them are exactly the same. You could say that, and those would be like 2 different comments.
Yeah, okay. So both are essential, no problem. A reasonable analogy I think would be a discussion of a race car. 1 is the engine and 2 is the aerodynamics. So yeah, a race car has both an engine and aerodynamics. You can't just like have one or the other. They both come up unless you go to outer space to get rid of aerodynamics because there's no air. But that would not be a standard race car. It would have to be a race space shuttle or something.
You
Like
could
the wheels aren't gonna work.
maybe
I mean,
you
you
could
can
put
go
in
on
like
like
a
the moon where there's.
You could have like vacuum tube racing.
Yeah, you could do that too. Yes, but yeah, racing in atmosphere, you have to deal with both.
Yeah.
Without one, you wouldn't have the energy or power to get anywhere. Without two, you'd be dragged down by the social dynamics and could end up in an equally lacking position as folks with the opposite problem. Alright, that's a little confusing, but he means you would like have as much as a problem. If you're missing one or if you're missing two, you could be in equal amounts of trouble. You could be screwed either way. Race car example. Alright. Dynamic. With both engine and aerodynamic. Okay, that's good enough. I don't need to go into detail on this because I'm not going to argue with it. If I wanted to debate his race car analogy, then I would get really specific and like make several nodes and explain how it worked, so that we would have like more information about it. Then I could then pick which node I wanted to debate with. But because I'm just going to agree with it, I'm not going to go into the details of it.
So he could like later be like, go into more analogy about the race car thing. I really want to know if you agree with it or if there are any mistakes, and then maybe you could be like, okay, I'll make a detailed tree about like exactly what you said, and then like say everything I can about it. That would be like a potential thing. You could like add detail to nodes in the future.
Yeah, we could always come back to this later if it became important to the discussion.
Okay, so both of these like qualities are important. I said important, you did connected. Uh, yeah, I guess connected is more important than saying they're important because like both are important. Like uh, two things can be
Yeah,
important but not related. Like these are actually connected though.
yeah. When he said both are essential, essential means important, but like there's also emphasis on the both, where we need both of them. So like they're both required. So I paraphrase it as they're connected, like because they go together in some way. But that's probably better to say. Okay, are both needed. That's probably clearer. They're both needed. You can't just deal with one.
Okay, so like they could be connected or like important. Like you need both of them.
You have to do things that are good and things that are that people want, or at least you have to deal with it in some way.
Hmm. Okay. And then this starts off with just like race car example about how both are needed.
I'll use essential because it's his word. They're both essential. There. Okay, now he says, this is an aside, so he's not going to build on this. He says he sees expertise, bias awareness, avoiding fallacies as things that feed into one. So,
Okay. So
here's one.
so he just like
Includes those things and gigahertz.
okay, that makes sense. So like he's talking about one and he's saying like these are also qualities of one.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on board to go after two, and more specifically, the things people find threatening to status and self-esteem. Okay, that was the topic I tried to bring up. He just says he's open to doing it. That seems like a side comment, like it's not actually about the topic, so I'm just gonna leave it out.
So he's
I'll
like
try to put
willing.
together a few thoughts, but I'm interested in your perspective as well. Is not talking about how social dynamics work, so I can leave it out. Go ahead.
So like I'm on board to go after two and more specifically things we find threatening, blah blah. Okay. Uh put in the tree to like,
I don't hear you. Wait. Oh, my headphones just disconnect. That's not good.
okay.
Testing.
Hello. I can hear you on Discord and YouTube. I can hear myself on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. Now it's working again. Okay, I missed most of what you said.
Okay, then I'm on board to go after two thing. Okay, so it might be worth putting it in the tree if he like later on says like, no, I was never actually interested in going to two. What the fuck are you talking about? When did I say that? Then that might be like worth putting in the tree. But right now it's just like
Yeah,
kind of a thing
sure.
where he's like, yeah, sure, let's do this. Like no conflict, nothing really happening. He's just saying he's gonna do something.
Yeah. He's not making a claim about how conversations work or what people want or whatever. These are just like set up sentences.
And it could
Now he has
also be
signaling
like,
superiority as undermining standing.
okay,
This is just a label heading.
okay. Okay, so this is just a heading for what he's talking about. Huh.
Yeah.
I do not feel bad people.
Okay, so this is what he wants to say is if you signal that you're better than someone else, it can lower their status.
Oh.
That's
Okay.
what he's talking about here. So he's going to write all of this stuff, I think, is going to be related to that.
Hmm.
So my initial thoughts on that are it's tricky because what if you are superior and then like they notice because like you say stuff and they're like and they're all good points, you know? If you just make a bunch of good points, people might be like, well, you're looking better than me because you're making more good points than me. And then that could feel like a threat to their status. So you could just
Huh.
do like
Yeah.
completely reasonable things and it could be a problem.
Yeah. That seems like it would be a problem with it.
Okay, so let's see what Gigahurt says. People keep an informal tally in their head about how they feel or do not feel about people, which he calls social standing. I would call social status, but same means the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like he's gonna build up an argument, so I'm gonna read ahead a bit. If person A uses language that makes person B seem inferior in front of C, it can trigger a few things. C may actually believe B is inferior, lowering B's standing in C's mind. C may not believe it, but B may have a theory of mind that predicts loss of standing. Oh yeah, so B could think C is judging him, even though C isn't actually. And then
Yeah.
it's the same effect. B feels bad if C judges him or if he thinks he's judging him.
Okay. Huh.
To some extent, it's entirely based on what B thinks. Because if C's judging him, but B doesn't think he's judged, then he might feel fine.
Okay. This kind of seems like similar to like in like the first or second chapter of Fountainhead, where like Peter Keating is wondering if people are looking through their windows at him. Like,
Yeah.
what do they think of him? Huh. So like, yeah.
Here it is.
Okay. I wondered as he was looking at
He
him.
wondered as he walked whether people were looking at him. He watched the rectangles of lighted windows. When a curtain fluttered and a head leaned out, he tried to guess whether it had leaned to watch his passing. If it hadn't, someday it would. Someday they all would. he wants people's attention and good opinion.
Attention. Huh.
Okay, so the effect, if B feels threatened, he'll dig into their position to save or regain face. Yeah, there's other things they might do. Yeah, like disengage completely. But all of the things that happen next when B is trying to fight for social status tend to be problems.
Okay.
Because now they're focused on how do I save my social status or get more social status or something rather than how do I seek the truth in this conversation. So it turns from teamwork to war. Instead of rationality, it's like politics. Yeah, I know I've read Less Wrong material about politics, and I understand why he says this. I agree with what he means, I think, but I would actually say it a bit differently. I think politics is really heavy on social dynamics. Like, I would say social dynamics is the fundamental thing, and then politics, it sucks because there's so much social dynamics. Rather than saying social dynamics sucks because it's like politics.
That makes sense. Like, you have like social dynamics is like the main overarching big thing, and then like things that it bleeds into is like politics and celebrities. So like
Yeah,
the problem you have
yeah,
with the politics is the social dynamics.
yeah. There are some other problems with politics as well, but I think the relevant ones are mainly the social dynamics. So, yeah, but if you go look up politics on Less Wrong and you read the stuff in the sequences about it, you will find relevant material that is,
Huh.
useful for understanding what's going on here. Okay, and then he says some optimizations can be made. Okay, so he's now switching topics somewhat. So I think I'll put this stuff into the tree now.
Okay, so like people. Yeah, I'm not sure how to. I would put it in the tree at first. Right now, I'm kind of just copying what you're doing mostly.
Yeah, so first I have to figure out what he's responding to.
Okay.
So it's this thing where I said, let's discuss what people find threatening to status and self-esteem and how that affects conversations. Right, this is the topic I said I'd bring up, and now he is... And he said, okay, now I'll respond to that topic you said you'd bring up, and then now he's responding to it, so it's going to go under here.
Okay.
Okay, and now I have to figure out how do I put his argument together. What are the main points? I'll start making nodes, and then I'll move them around later. So this is going to be a node. People keep track of their opinions of others. Social status.
Huh. Okay. I did people weigh their feelings of others at first.
Weighing their feelings doesn't mention that they remember it. When he says keep a tally in their head, he's talking about memory, like they're keeping track of it. They're like a tally is a way of keeping track of numbers as you go along. So the point is that there's persistence over time. Your social standing, it's like your Overwatch SR, where it gets kept track of and it keeps changing, but it's still there over time, right? It's like saved. Yeah, so people weigh their feelings of others, and also then they write down what the weight is. Not really write it down, but they keep track of it somehow.
Okay, so like keep track of. So you could do like keep track of their opinions.
Okay. Problem. Person A uses language that makes person B seem inferior in front of C. I think I'm going to leave out the details because I think that we don't need them.
Okay, if first see, you can trigger.
If B feels threatened, he'll do things like dig into his position or leave the discussion to try to regain status. It turns into politics. Okay, these are not organized yet, by the way. I'm just writing them down before I place them.
Just say keep going.
It turns into politics, war instead of teamwork. Okay, I think I got his main points, and I left out a few details, but I don't think they're necessary, because I'm not going to argue with him about those, like, that's fine. Okay, so the main thing is that these are a little bit separate, I think.
I wasn't sure if the person in the ABC example might have been like a child of people track their feelings. I was
It's
thinking like
like a
people
bit
track their
related.
feelings, so this is a problem, like due to the tracking of feelings.
Yeah, there is a connection there.
Huh.
Oh yeah, this is a quote. I want to put that in quote. Okay. If B feels threatened, he'll do things like dig into retrieving status. I'm just going to put an arrow. Because the status came up again here. So I threw in an arrow. Okay, does the stuff he's saying make sense to you? In this part.
Okay, so he's talking about what's the thing he's talking about? All right, you kind of gave him a prompt, and then he started saying things about it, and the prompt was like about social dynamics in discussion. And then he started
And it
being
was
like,
specifically what
uh,
threatens people. The prompt was
what people
about
find
threats.
threatening to status and self-esteem. Oh, okay. Let's discuss what people.
So he's
Okay.
trying to tell us something that threatens people, which is this
Mm-hmm.
thing. A uses language that makes person B seem inferior in front of C. So that
Yeah.
threatens people.
Yes, like A could say like, I think B is wrong on X, and then B is like afraid, oh my God, what's C gonna think of me? Uh,
Actually, I'm going to do it like this. Note. People keep track. It's this is helping explain this one.
huh.
Like this thing is kind of built on top of this. This one, to understand what he's saying, we're dealing with status, so this is info about how status works.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm going to make this one clear as well. When people focus on status, it turns into politics, war instead of teamwork.
Okay. So when you do the politics, like the social dynamics,
That might be a little
you
wrong. Let's
trying
see.
to like.
There we go. When people focus on threats to status, it turns into politics or war.
So like you're more afraid of like uh losing social status, like you need to protect it rather than like, oh, I'm wrong. How am I wrong? I need to know. Please tell me.
Yeah. Okay. So some optimizations can be made when delivering information. So there's improvements when we're talking to people to avoid judgment of the other person's knowledge or capability. They serve to illustrate how things can go wrong.
Right now I'm behind you on the tree. I'm finding it hard to do the tree and pay attention to what you're doing at the same time.
Do you want to keep up on your tree?
I'm not sure. I think I'm fine just watching what you're doing. But I'm also not sure if I need to be doing this tree.
You don't need to. You
Okay.
could try to do it yourself later, like after you get through this, then you can work on it by yourself and see if you could finish it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so he's going to tell us ideas about how to talk to people.
Yeah, it's like some optimization can be made when delivering information. It's like you can do things
Okay.
to give information without threatening people's social dynamics as much, like without threatening status as
Tips to
much.
avoid coming off judgmental.
I thought it would be more like tips to avoid threatening, like
Yeah, judgmental sort of means threatening, like it means you're negatively judging their social status.
huh,
Well, I guess it's not just judgment from you, it's judgment from the audience as well. Judgmental makes it sound like,
judge.
how do I avoid coming off like I'm judging you? Or if we really want how to avoid making someone feel like anyone is judging them negatively.
So like tips to avoid making person feel judged.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Tips to avoid person feeling judged, threatened. Okay. Avoid saying obviously X. Yeah, better to say X. When you say something's obvious, then you're calling people stupid for not knowing it.
Hmm. Yeah, doesn't seem like too big of a deal to change that.
Yeah,
It
that is
seems
a
like
thing
it
I
could be
already do
tricky.
for other reasons anyways, because, according to critical rationalism, the truth is not obvious. So that's another reason not to say things are obvious. You know, the truth is hard to come by. It's tricky to figure out what's correct. We shouldn't just think, oh, I know the answer, it's obvious. We should think, I might be wrong. Like, there's always potential to screw up.
Hmm. Like some people have the idea that you need as many reasons as possible for something, or I forget exactly what. You need to do like have as many arguments as possible, just in case one of them is the right one. Uh, so like that makes it seem like truth is not very obvious.
Yeah, that is an example of someone who thinks it's not obvious which one's right, so you keep thinking of lots of ideas. Okay, so better to say I'm having trouble understanding. Can you rephrase a different way? This is this is fairly standard communication advice, and I think it's overrated. It can help, it can work sometimes, but sometimes it can come off condescending, or people can feel bad. Like, one of the things it signals is that you're making an effort to be nice to them, or you're making an effort to be polite, or like there's a visible effort that goes into this where you're trying not to offend them, and then their response can be, you're treating me like I'm fragile, or you're treating me like I'm dumb and you have to be careful with me to not say I'm dumb. Like, they can pick up on what you're doing and then get offended.
Hmm. Yeah. Huh.
So I think not offending people is quite a bit trickier than this.
And people. Okay, so it's not just like easy mode. Here are some tips to avoid not offending people. It's like something you'd actually have to spend like years practicing to like be really, really good at it.
Yes.
Huh.
Another way to look at it is, if this type of thing was good enough to solve the problem, why aren't there way more better discussions? Because there's enough people who have read books like Nonviolent Communication, or How to Talk So Your Kid Will Listen, or listen to your kid will talk or whatever it is. Maybe it's just people, not kid, I forgot. Anyways, there's a bunch of books on this stuff. And if it worked really well, I think it would be more widespread and we'd see more effective conversations than we actually see. So I think there's something missing and the problem's harder than a lot of these books acknowledge or understand.
Okay. Something's missing. There's like a harder problem. They don't exactly understand. They're like missing something. Okay, this is like standard advice, and it's like overrated, do you think? That's like your general opinion. So I guess you'd like add standard, overrated, advice. It's missing something. Doesn't
Yeah.
quite understand what's happening.
It kind of depends where you're coming from. So there's some people who are like openly rude. If you get the openly rude people to talk like this, it can help. Because this is an
Yeah.
improvement over being an asshole.
So if you're like, what
However,
the fuck are you saying? You don't make any sense, then this is like a huge improvement.
yes, yeah, people are going to respond better to this than you're talking nonsense, WTF question mark question mark. Or, you're talking nonsense, explain better question mark. That's not going to work well. But once you get to the point where people are like better than that, then this kind of thing has less power to improve the situation. And some more subtle problems become important that this doesn't solve, I think. Like the trouble can be that people feel condescended to when you start talking like this. One of the things that happens is sometimes I have to ask people several clarifying questions in a row. And by the way, you can be more helpful than this. If you just say this, you're not giving the person enough guidance about which part you don't understand. So
yeah, I think I remember like sometimes with you I'd be like, oh, I don't understand. Like in response to like 2 or 3 paragraphs of text, and you're like, you don't understand what? I was like, oh yeah, I guess I need to specify what I don't understand. So like if you could at least like narrow it down to a sentence, that would be a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, if they can point at the specific part they don't understand, or they can explain what they're not understanding to some extent, like even a partial explanation, it gives me new information to help me rephrase. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
sometimes like when we were analyzing sentences, I'd be like, this word is hard for me. Instead of just being like, I don't understand the sentence. I'd like
yeah,
find a specific word.
yeah, that works way better. Right, so anyways, I'll ask people clarifying questions, and I'll specifically tell them which part I don't understand or why I think it's unclear. Sometimes I'll even say, like, this is ambiguous, it could mean thing number 1 or thing number 2. Like really specific about what the problem is, and I don't know which of the two things they mean. And anyways, sometimes I have to ask people clarifying questions several times in a row. Like I ask a clarifying question, they give an answer that's still not clear. So I ask another clarifying question, they give an answer that's still not clear, and then I try a third time. And one of the things that happens is then they start feeling bad and they feel like it's their fault and they keep being unclear and they start getting defensive and feeling incompetent because they weren't able to communicate. And the more polite I am and the more I do a good job, where it's obvious that I'm not doing anything wrong, that can actually make them feel worse. It puts like all the blame on them if I'm being perfect.
Huh. Yeah, I feel bad for asking too many clarifying questions in a row. I definitely noticed this. This is definitely a thing that has happened to me before. Uh, Not sure about how much I've been asked clarifying questions though, but I've definitely
Yeah, the
noticed
scenario I
sometimes
was
that I
talking about
ask
was
clarifying
asking them.
questions.
But it can go the other way too. If you have to ask a lot of clarifying questions, you might feel bad and feel like it's your fault for not understanding, especially if the clarifying questions you're asking are a bit vague. Like if I'm asking really good clarifying questions, like, I think you could mean X or Y, or you use this pronoun, what does this pronoun refer to? Like questions like that, it doesn't really seem like my fault that much. So anyways, if it fails several times in a row, we're trying to communicate and it's not working, then people will tend to start looking for who can we blame. And if I keep saying things like, I'm still having trouble understanding you, can we try again, please? I don't think that solves the problem that they're going to start feeling bad and feeling like maybe I'm blaming them. Just because I'm being polite doesn't mean I'm not judging them. They might assume that I'm judging them despite being polite, and they might assume that the politeness just makes them look even worse because it makes more of a contrast between us. Or they might feel like they have to talk super polite too, otherwise they'll look bad compared to me. So it could add like an extra pressure they have to worry about.
Hmm.
So I think there's a hard problem there, and I find it difficult to get people to answer very many questions. They'll answer like a couple, and then they'll sort of say, I explained myself, you should understand it by now, and they'll start blaming me, and they don't want to just keep clarifying. They don't want to go through a process where I ask them 10 questions and they do 10 clarifications, and then I'm like, okay, it's finally clear now, and then they feel bad that their first thing was 10 steps away from being clear. Like, that makes them look incompetent, even if I'm polite about it.
Huh.
And I can
Yeah.
explain what's going on. Like, I can say, well, most people are pretty bad at communicating, and it's a skill you have to practice, and I can put it in context and say this doesn't make you worse than other people I've talked to, but that still comes off as like condescending to them, or it makes them look bad in some way they don't like. Like it's hard to make it okay for them when there actually is a skill gap.
That seems like what makes me feel better.
The comparisons to people in general sometimes help. I know that that's helped people before when I said lots of people screw up like that, or stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
However, you have to be careful with that because when you're telling someone it's okay that you screwed up in that way because most people do, it does make you seem better than them. So on the one hand, it can help them, but on the other hand, it can also offend them.
Huh.
You have to kind of read the situation on whether they'd like it. Sometimes you can find a different way to express it. Um, one of the things they like better is you can say, it's okay, like I've made that mistake lots of times too. You put yourself on their level, and you use an example where you made the mistake, and then you're like, lots of people that make that mistake, including me, and then you don't come off superior to them. And like you can
Yeah.
say, here's what I did about it to try to fix it so I don't do it as much. Um, that's a fairly common tactic, and I think it's used dishonestly sometimes because it's so socially convenient and effective. So people will lie about their own mistakes in order to get along with people better. They'll pretend they made mistakes that they didn't, just so that they can not come off as superior to the other person.
Huh.
So I don't like to lie, and there are, a variety of mistakes that I haven't made for a long time. Like I practiced them, many years ago, and there's some of them that I just didn't make in the first place. And so sometimes it's hard for me to uh, take the blame for also doing it. Like that doesn't always work for me.
Mhm. And I guess it might be weird if you like try to bring up other people's mistakes. Like, oh, don't worry, like X person who's also in this community made that mistake a bunch. That would kind
Yeah.
of be like,
If I'm like, oh, that's like that mistake Rami always makes, then that just might make him think like I'm calling him, oh, you're dumb like Rami. That can make it worse. But if you say like, oh, 90% of the people I talk to make that mistake, um, it makes him feel like better in one way because it's not like his own personal failing. It's like a common thing in our society, but it's also putting him below me. If it's like I talk to all these people and then I judge them and I notice that lots of them make this mistake that I don't make, and so yeah. Anyways, it's hard. There's a lot
yeah.
of nuance.
I wonder if there's a way to do it where you can like lower everyone in the world at once and then like also raise yourself so that the other person won't feel as bad because it's like, oh, I'm still like equal or slightly better than everyone else except you. I wonder
People are
if
usually not okay with that. It's worse with me because I don't have like visible public social status. I don't have a significant amount of that. Right? So if you're talking to Einstein and he's like, "Oh, I've seen that mistake before." You're probably not going to feel that bad if you're worse than Einstein
Yeah,
in
he's
some way.
like the stereotypical choice for like smartest person ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so DD can get away with some of these things more than I can because people are more okay with feeling like DD is smarter than them than they are
Yeah,
with
he
feeling
like
like I'm smarter than them.
yeah. He won the $100,000 physics prize. Like, I don't understand how physics works. Uh, seems like stuff should already be solved. How can you make $100,000 from it? Yeah.
And
So
so he's
that okay.
he says this puts the burden of understanding on the listener rather than the speaker. I think that's unclear. Like, you do say I'm having trouble understanding, so you're blaming yourself, like theoretically. I think a lot of times people will hear this and they'll think what you mean is your thing was unclear. Like they'll take it the other way. And even if they don't, if you have to do it like 3 times or 4 times in a row, then they'll often start taking the blame more themselves, especially if there's any sort of visible signs that they're screwing up in some way. Like they can see to some extent like who's in the wrong. Like there's evidence about who's messing up. And so if the evidence seems to suggest they're the ones messing up, then they'll often feel bad about it and get defensive or lash out at you or something, regardless of how you phrase it. Like if the evidence is all pointing at it being their fault and you're saying, well, I'm still having trouble understanding, you just come off as being like extra nice to them, but it's still their fault, really.
So you'd like have to try really hard to be like, uh, I am really, or like I myself am really having trouble understanding this. You'd have to like try to really put the blame on yourself and like avoid mentioning any mistakes which they could notice they made.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, I think a lot of the trouble in conversations, uh, it's not how you phrase the information, it's just the information itself is scary to them because the information is, their idea is wrong or their argument, contained an error or whatever. Like, no matter how you express it, if you're correcting someone, that can be threatening to them. If you're revealing some sort of error they made, that can be threatening to them. If you communicate it in a way where they understand that, then there's a way for them to not like it. Okay, so he says that these things aren't that big a deal, but they add up.
Okay, so like each one of them not big a deal, but they add up. That can make sense. Like you can do one really big, you can do like one specific single social dynamic thing, but then like that might help you a bit, but uh, there's still like a bunch of other stuff you're missing.
Okay, extremely firm language as a prelude to conflict. You know what prelude is?
Like a thing before, like
Yes.
I, I don't really know, but I hear it and it's like a prelude to war or whatever. Like,
An introductory thing that precedes something that's more important.
hmm. So like you can have a prelude to a movie, which would be everyone sitting in the seats and advertisements playing.
Sure. Okay. So, topic number 2, firm language. Firm language can lead to conflict.
Okay, so firm just means like more like assertive kind of like
Yeah.
you're not being like backing off. You're not like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is kind of how it works. Or like, I'm very sure how this works. Or you're like, it works like this.
If you start with clear, strong, firm statements, then the other person may have no option but direct disagreement. Lots of people don't want to contradict others. Right. People see contradiction as conflict and try to avoid conflict. We'll throw in like a often. Say X and you think not X, the conversation space is full because there's no room left to say anything other but like the opposite of what the other guy said. If I said I'm not sure what the right answer here is, but I'll put forward the question to get us going, I've paved the way forward for you to be able to express yourself as well, or even asking a question. Yeah, so this kind of thing is fine when it's an option, but I think that the most important thing, in my opinion, is to be honest. So sometimes if I say I'm not sure what the right answer here is, I would be lying. I might have a firm opinion already. Now, firm doesn't mean I won't change my mind or I won't debate or consider other opinions, but firm can mean, I've come to a conclusion. I see no reason, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I've already debated it 20 times, and I've dealt with many, many counter arguments, and so I'd be surprised about changing my mind.
Yeah, so
I could be
like,
wrong about anything, but I have reasonable confidence in this particular claim.
yeah, it's like with communism, you've had like probably hundreds of discussions and like read dozens of books.
Yeah, communism is actually it's a very complicated topic.
Uh,
So although I've done a bunch of stuff on that topic, there's like a lot more. Like I haven't actually read Marx, for example. So there's more that I could do. It's not my expertise. But I do have pretty confident opinions related to it.
mm.
An alternative is saying, okay, there. So that thing is an alternative. Asking a question is another alternative. Yeah, asking questions you can do even when you do have a firm opinion, and
Yeah,
it's
so you can
not
be like,
dishonest. It's
what do you
it's
think
easier
about
to do this.
communism?
Yeah, or you can say like, I think this is an important question. Want to discuss what the answer to it is. And you can say that even if you already think you know what the answer is.
Hmm. Okay, there's like some way you could do this though to like be dishonest, I think. I remember you talking about like some objectivisty guy, I think, who there's like a professor who he thought was like really bad and mean, but he like talked to him in a way where it made the professor think he was agreeing with him, when he was actually like trying to like really insult him. He said something like, I think the way you teach is unique and not many students would appreciate it for like something really bad that the professor does. And like the
Uh,
professor took it as a compliment and he like intended it to be taken as as a compliment without like literally directly lying, but it still seemed dishonest. And I remember you
yeah,
like not liking that.
Yeah, I somewhat remember that. I forgot where it was from though. Yeah, sometimes people say things that are intended to be misunderstood, and I think that's dishonest.
Hmm.
And sometimes questions can be dishonest. Sometimes questions like they're not just what's the answer to X. Sometimes they express opinions implied in the question. And so that's one of the ways they can lie is when you're expressing an opinion, you could lie about what your opinion is.
So I'm not sure. Could you say something like, "Wait, are you really a Nazi?" when someone says they support Trump? Like that's not actually a question. That's like trying to call the other person a Nazi, kinda.
Yeah, yeah. Like the point of that question, are you really a Nazi, when you said you supported Trump, was to express or assert the opinion that Trump supporter equals Nazi. Like that's a claim. That's a conclusion you have. And that's what that's the main thing you're communicating there. Whereas the are you really is not it's not much of a question, you know? It's like suppose you left out the extra claim that Trump supporters are Nazis, then your question would be they're like I'm a Trump supporter and your question is are you really a Trump supporter? That's what it is in question form. It's really empty. It's just kind of like do you really think so? Which people ask now and then.
Yeah.
When you
So
say do you
someone,
really think so, often what they really mean is I find that surprising. So it's
yeah. So
expressing an
someone
opinion.
like literally just says like, "I'm a Nazi," and then you're like, "Wait, you're really a Nazi?" It's like that's a really weird thing to just say.
Yeah. That question is partly I find that surprising, but it's partly like, are you joking? Is this sarcasm? There's several alternatives. Okay, he says he thinks this is a reason Socrates asked a lot of questions. Could be. It's very hard to speculate on stuff that's that long ago. The cultural and social dynamics back then were different.
I don't really understand who Socrates was or what he did. I've definitely heard the name, and I
Yeah,
think I once maybe read you or like Ayn Rand talking about him once.
okay. The most famous Greek philosophers
It's
were
like Plato. I think there's
Socrates, Plato,
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Yeah. These people lived around 2,500 years ago.
Oh, that's a while.
Yeah. Yeah, see, here's the dates. He lived from 470 to 399 BC, approximately. Which means that he died, 399 plus 2020 makes 2419. Yeah. Socrates died 2,419 years ago. And Plato and Aristotle came a little bit after Socrates. It was Socrates first, Plato second, Aristotle third.
Huh.
But they lived in each other's lifetimes. Like Socrates talked with Plato, and then Plato talked with Aristotle.
Plato's not.
I don't know if Socrates and Aristotle knew each other.
Socrates. Huh.
I don't remember
Okay.
that being a thing. So it might just be Socrates knew Plato, then Plato knew Aristotle.
Huh. They said the cause of death was forced suicide. For
Yeah,
Socrates. That seems bad.
yeah, that's very well known. He
Huh.
had a trial, and he took a stand, and he drank hemlock rather than apologize or admit he was wrong. Basically,
Hmm.
let's see what it says.
Okay.
He was found guilty of corrupting the minds of the youth and of being impious, And so they're sort of like, your philosophy and your education is evil. It's hurting the young people that you're teaching, and it shows that you're bad at religion. And he had the opportunity to apologize and say, my bad, I'll change my ways, or to flee and leave the city. And he did not take either of those options. He argued that he was right, and then died.
Hmm. So he like didn't give in. He was like, no, fuck you. I'm right.
Yeah, he stood up for his values, so it's famous for that.
Huh.
He was reasonably old already, approximately 71, which is, it's older back
Yeah.
then than it is now because less medicine.
Yeah. I remember hearing something about like uh average life rates in like older times are like kind of deflated because there's a bunch of like child and infant mortality, but if you like live to
Yes.
like 25, then you actually have a good chance of like living a lot longer.
Yeah. The people still died younger, but yeah, once you got past early childhood, the you had a decent chance. The average was misleading because of all the dead children. Okay, he says he'll leave it at that for now. Feel free to take the conversation a different direction. Interested in my thoughts about what threatens people, and also the qualities in 2. In addition to avoiding arousing emotions, we should keep ourselves calm and not be offended when people say things like obviously. We can broaden the people we can discuss with by being more careful and more thick-skinned. Yeah, I agree. You can do it on both ends. You can try to uh, be tolerant of what they say and say things that don't require very much tolerance from the other guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can have like more discussions. So like if you get thicker skin, then you can have conversations with more like rude people. And if you're better at like not sounding rude, then you can have conversations with people who are like worse at taking rudeness or whatever. Or like even just things they think are rude, I guess. It doesn't have to actually be rude.
Yeah, so he says, I think it also implies we can speak less carefully around people we know to be thick-skinned / emotionally immature / highly rational. Yeah, and I have a reputation for being thick-skinned, and possibly the other ones, and so some people are definitely less careful around me because they don't think it matters that much. And on top of that, my forum has quite a bit of like a free speech, anything goes attitude, where you don't have to be politically correct and you don't have to be super polite and all that. So the forum ethos is more on the expect everyone to be thick-skinned side of things rather than the be careful with everyone side. It's that type of forum.
Yeah. It's yeah. That seems good. You can still okay. In places like auto admit, I think would be like more like if someone asks to be like treated nicer, then that would just kind of be like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? Go away, kind of attitude to someone saying that. But on this forum, it would be more like, okay, on this forum, if someone asks to be treated nicer, and then like someone insulted them, it's kind of like, why would you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, some forums are super thick-skinned, and you ask people to be polite, they will flame you and wonder why you're at that particular forum. But my forums, the default is more in the thick-skinned direction. But if you ask someone to be polite, they'll probably try to be a bit politer. Like, that's a reasonable thing you could ask for. So we're nicer than the super whatever forums like 4chan. Okay, so do I need any nodes from here? Yeah, I should get something. So we can both be thick-skinned and tolerant while also trying to be easy to listen to. Where does that go? Put under tips to avoid person feeling threatened, or, so he said it was related to 2, so I'll go back to the 2, which is over here somewhere. Yeah, okay. So 1, 2. All these people wanted a discussion partner. And then it connected over here, and oh, emotional arousal. Maybe that's where I should put it. Okay, avoid emotion and also stay calm. Staying calm helps too. And then over here, under the judgy stuff. Okay. Try to be tolerant and thick-skinned while requiring little tolerance from others. Okay. Makes sense so far? That is the end of Gigahert's post.
Okay, so he had like tips to 2 things. They were like about making people feel less. Okay, so what was it? Okay, you threatening to self-status and self-esteem, how that affects conversations. Then Gigahertz was like, okay, cool, let's talk about that. And then he started talking about that. It's like, about that. I guess I can like make really fucking broad things in the tree as well, like even less uh precise than normal, just so like I could keep track of it.
Sure.
Okay, like people do social. Yeah. Okay, so okay. Then he gave tips for like how to deal with things. Like tips to be like less offensive, be able to talk to more people. Like tips to be able to talk to other people, and tips for you. Like tips for other people to be able to talk to you, and then tips for you to be able to talk to other people. Kind of like, well, I guess I could just have like tips, and then like kind of uh mostly focusing on other people, and then like some focus on self. And, like kind of be like tips to talk to other people. Social dynamic stuff. Let's talk about that. And, like tips to
Yeah,
talk to more
and
people as like on other people. Then like how you are able to like
yeah, so
have
some
thicker
of his
skin or
main
whatever.
points, which you could copy into your tree, are here, here, and here. These 3 things.
Thanks.
So be
Yes, so
careful
those
about
can be
language
like
that makes
so
people
true.
seem inferior, such as obviously or you don't make sense.
Wait, where'd it go? Should have come here to delete it. No. Session highlights. Where was it? Discussion with Gigahertz. Okay, then. Uh, ABC. Oh, yes, like tips. People fly informally. That's like not actually a tip. That's just like describing a thing that happens. Like people informally tally. Okay. First in A, it can trigger a few things. Okay. So like I think this is like a thing, and then this is like kind of about talking about it more. And then it's me actually believe he was inferior. Uh,
Oh, I lined my underlines up again.
okay. Avoid saying obviously X. It's like this is a tip. Uh, like like other people and other people tip is on the. Okay. Okay, if I just select the node, then press Control V, it doesn't put it into the node. Okay. Avoid saying like you don't make sense. Okay. Select the node and then just Control V.
Okay, so tangentially, or I guess we can finish. So there's this other section too. This one he was talking about how if you make firm statements, people don't have wiggle room to say their own opinion without contradicting you.
So if you say like induction is absolutely false,
Yeah,
then very
some
firm.
people don't like that. Which
If
that
you're
is the
like,
type of statement I will totally say, by the way.
so you'd like totally say induction is absolutely false.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't phrase it exactly like that because that absolutely doesn't explain yourself very well. But I'd say something that basically means that.
Mm.
Like, induction is false. The idea that anyone has ever learned anything by induction is a misconception because it's physically impossible. It violates the laws of physics to learn anything by induction.
I guess it also would be like more important to say something more firm if someone's like trying to ask a clarifying question. If someone's like, "What do you think about induction?" and you're like, "I think induction is absolutely false," then that would be like, or like,
Yeah. It's
if
important
they
with
are trying to
induction
figure it
in particular because that topic has a history of people saying induction doesn't work, but I'm going to kind of half believe it anyways. Like its opponents or its semi-fans have, given a lot of mixed messages where they're like, it doesn't work, but we use it anyways. Maybe it half works. Like, it's not logical, but it sort of works. It's good.
Yeah.
People think it's a good approximation or something. So you have to be really clear if you're saying it's not a good approximation. It's not a thing people can do. When people think they learned by induction, they're just confused about what they did.
Yeah. And
And
isn't induction like a thing where it's only like I forget. Something about like only you and a few other people, maybe like David Deutsch and Karl Popper and like Alan Forrester or something are like actually right about it or something, or like actually know about induction. Uh, but then like everyone else in the world believes it to at least some degree.
yeah, it's hard to tell. There are other Popper fans who say that they reject induction, but they don't debate enough, so it's hard to tell exactly what they think. But there are
Hmm.
also people on Popperian forums who don't believe me that Popper totally rejected induction, and they're like, well, of course it half works, and like they don't even
Huh.
know that the position is to reject it.
Huh.
Like a bunch of the people on the Fabric of Reality list are like that.
Hmm. So did like Fabric of Reality completely reject induction, and then like
Yes.
some people were like, uh, "Oh, induction still kind of works. I still know this book. I still understand it." Huh. I don't know. Okay, what am I saying? Uh, okay. I don't know how common it is for people to think they understand a book.
Most yeah, people just read books and then think they understand them. Happens all the time.
Hmm.
There's a nice example here. Okay, you see how solipsism? This is the index. So it says what
Oh, okay.
pages talk about solipsism,
50
and
to
then
70.
these are subcategories. So some stuff, they're just like, you can learn about sociobiology on page 360. But for
Mm.
solipsism, there are subcategories. Like there's defense of solipsism is 81 to 82. Explanation of solipsism is on these pages. Solipsism as indefensible is on these pages. Solipsism and intuitionism is on these pages. Solipsism joke is on this page, and so on. There's all these subcategories.
Joke?
Yeah, there's some joke related to solipsism on page 81.
Alright. Alright. He has like good citation things. There's something about like chicken story I remember hearing about.
Yes. Yes,
And then
I know.
like yeah, they wanted him to have it as a really fancy name which no one would fucking understand. But he just wrote he like fought for chicken story or something so that anyone could follow it, I think.
Because he knew that his readers would remember chicken,
Oh, it
and
was
then
down.
that's how they would try to look it up.
Chicken story. Vessel.
There it is. Yeah, so that's a good index because people actually find it. Whereas they don't necessarily remember the name Bertrand Russell, and that he's specifically the guy for that story.
Hmm.
Anyways, so solipsism, there's a lesson about solipsism and how badly people understand books.
So how bad
So
did
you
it
can
understand?
see how solipsism comes up on many different pages, and there's many subsections. It's indexed a lot, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of solipsism. It seems like there's a lot more than I'd kind of expect of solipsism. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the people on the Fabric of Reality email group who had been posting for years started debating with me about whether solipsism was discussed in the book. Not whether the book was
Uh,
right about it, but whether it was in the book or not in the book.
hmm. It seems like Control F is overpowered.
Yeah, I fear he had a paper copy only, but I don't think that was really the issue, because the indexes are mostly because of paper copies, so you can actually find stuff in a paper book.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was going from memory, and he was very confident. So confident that he argued with like David Deutsch's close associate about the contents of the book, and
Okay,
thought he was
so
right or something.
he was very confident. He like
From
was talk.
memory, that was totally not in the book.
Huh. I don't know how to tell how much solipsism is actually talked about. Like, is this just maybe like a few sentences per page, or does each page like have like a few paragraphs of talking about it? I
It's
don't
a
know how to
major
tell.
topic in the book. It's a theme. If you read the book, hopefully you'll notice.
Huh.
It's a running theme that comes up in several arguments, and it gets significant attention.
Huh. Okay. Major thing comes up through the book. Significant attention.
Yeah, one of the things you'll
Okay.
notice is
81, 82, 80, 80, 80. Okay, so from 80 to
oh
85,
yeah, there's a
there's
lot of
a lot
stuff.
of talking.
Yeah, so there's a section of several pages where he's talking about it a bunch.
Hmm. And then also like 231 to 233 as well. That's like 4 pages.
Yep, 3 pages.
Yeah. Like four uh references on like the 3 pages. Yeah. So like
Oh yeah,
it has
for
like
reference.
two dense things, dense amounts of solipsism.
Yep, and then there's also here 97, 97, 97, and nearby.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff.
some of these random things seem interesting, like sound reproduction, like in the index. It shows like sound reproduction and like space curved, three-dimensional, and time, and spaceflight simulators, space-time. Has like a bunch of uh things which like I look at them, that seems
Yeah,
interesting.
these are physicsy topics.
I really like the explanation about the light like if you're a frog and like you got further away from the sun, it just
Yes.
would like continuously like get dimmer and dimmer, and then eventually it would just flicker. I didn't know about that. I never really thought about it, but it was like a really interesting explanation. I like the explanation.
Did you read that chapter yourself, or did someone tell you?
I read the chapter. I think I read the first chapter, maybe up to the second chapter. I stopped at around
Yeah,
the
the
split
frog is in
light bulb
chapter
thing.
2.
Huh. I like the split whole light thing, the slit experiment or something,
Oh, the slit
where light
experiment is in
is
chapter
weird.
2 as well. Okay, so you stopped partway through chapter 2.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to read the book, it has a lot of interesting stuff, but you should just read a bunch of books and then get more used to reading books, and then you could read it again.
So like get good at reading books. Wait, so would it still be possible? Or okay, so I think main thing is like get good at reading books, then learn from books, kinda. That's like what you said in the reading practice thing, I think. It's like
Yeah,
be able to read
roughly.
books, then get good at them. Is it bad to read books which you don't think you'll understand, but they still seem interesting? Like FOR, some of the stuff seems interesting. I doubt I'll understand a lot of it, but like just these
It
things seem kind of interesting.
it depends. There's a risk where you get stuck, or you have problems, and then you stop reading. So the safest thing to do is read books that are easier to read for a while until reading is more of a habit and you're more confident that you can actually read through books. And then when you get to that point, reading a harder book and not worrying about understanding it very well would be less risky.
So if I'm like worried I won't understand it, then I'll be like, oh man, these book things are just hard, I give up.
Yeah,
Kinda.
you want to start with the books that are the easiest to have a good time with, which is
So like
not the confusing ones.
So like Feynman stories maybe. I watched like a
Yeah.
hour 10-minute thing, like stories from Los Alamos lecture he did, and it was really fucking funny, uh, and like cool stories. He literally lockpicked like the vault or like the safe with all the nuclear secrets in it. Huh.
Yeah, so there are multiple books of Feynman stories. The most well-known one is Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. There's another one called What Do You Care What People Think, or What Other People Think, or something.
Yeah. How much does the book actually have to do with the title? Like, how much or what do you care what other people think? Seems kind of objectivisty or like social dynamicsy.
Yeah, it is a theme in the book. It comes up several times. It's not like a philosophy lecture on that topic or anything, but, it comes up.
It's like a theme, and you could like take examples from it into like the real world. Like, you could have Peter Keating as an example of like people in the real world, or you could like have some of the situations in that book when it comes up as an example. That's how I'm guessing of it.
Yeah, Feynman. Um, in particular, he talks about visiting his wife in the hospital and having to do like awkward things, like having a barbecue on the lawn in front of the hospital, and he felt social pressure not to do that because it's like not really an appropriate place, like it's not his own backyard, and he decided he needed to not care what people think and do it anyways.
Hmm. Yeah, I can kind of think of an example similar to that of me right now. I'm not gonna say it.
Okay, so right, he said the thing about if you make firm statements, then people have trouble expressing themselves without contradicting you, and some people don't like contradictions because they're trying to avoid conflict. So that is a thing that makes discussion difficult. And people can feel like when two people contradict each other, then someone's going to have to be wrong and lose status. That can like seem threatening to them. I think that's part of why he brought it up. Because the overall topic was status threats.
Okay, I tried to make two tree things.
Okay, so then tangentially, he knows how to use Markdown. See, this is like a Markdown header, which I
I don't
don't.
really understand.
Oh, so
Uh,
this is a Markdown editor, so you can see how it highlights it.
yeah.
They're headers, and 1 means the biggest header, and then 2 is smaller, and 3 is smaller, and so on.
Hmm. So you can have like my message in like the biggest header, and then you can have like, okay, this subcategory of like social dynamics, and you can have smaller things like blah blah stuff or blah
Yeah,
blah blah other things. So you can
yeah,
kind of do it like a tree, basically.
yeah.
Seems really weird that you can just turn a code into a tree if you're using Lisp. That seems interesting. I think you can turn any Lisp code into a tree. Is that correct?
Yes.
Huh.
I thought there was a button where you could find your place by all the headers in your file, but I don't see it, and I forgot where it is. But never mind that. But anyways, okay, so he's doing Markdown, and then you scroll down,
Mhm.
and here he is using quotes. He knows how to use quotes,
Mhm.
which are also a Markdown thing as well as an email thing. And so this reminded me of something related to our previous discussions about public intellectuals and how good they are.
They can't do these, I'm guessing.
Right, so what I was going to say is it's hard to find public intellectuals who have discussions that look like this, where they use Markdown formatting and quote things and have good discussions in text. So you would figure if the public intellectuals were having a bunch of good discussions with each other, and they're ignoring the low status people, but the high status people would have great discussions with each other, you'd figure some of them would be public, and we'd be able to read them, and some of them would be in text because text is the best format to have a serious discussion. And then we'd see their like forum posts with like markdown and quoting and all that, and we'd see some good discussions, and there'd be examples of that. And the world seems to have quite a shortage of examples of this.
Is text being the best form of discussion controversial at all, or do people like kind of agree with it but don't care?
Uh, Hard to say. Semi-controversial. Like people sort of acknowledge it, and like academics publish journal articles in text, which they consider more important than speeches. Like books are seen as a bit more important than speeches because you get to write down in detail and like be careful and reread and all that. So people know about some advantages to text, but yeah. Uh, I remember William Godwin in approximately 1800 said to people like, "Why do you want to have voice debates with me? You just want to inflame the passions of your audience. If you were really serious, you would have a text debate with me."
Mhm. Yeah. So like he just
And
wants to be able to
that was
like
back in the era of
win the
handwriting, and he
stage
still
kind
wanted
of.
it. What?
So like people kind of just want to like win the audience, like win kind of the social game of debating, but that's
Yeah,
harder in text because like there's not a crowd that's like, yeah, you go, you're right, you're so smart, you sound really good.
right.
You can
And when
be
it's
like,
text, you don't get to do voice tones and body language and stuff, so it's harder to do emotion arousing and social signals.
yeah, you can't like look at the crowd and be like, okay, if the other person says an argument that you're having a hard time dealing with, you can't just be like, look at the crowd and be like, what the fuck kind of argument was that? You'd like actually have to mention it.
Yeah. Okay. So the point
Huh.
is, if the intellectuals were having a bunch of good discussions, we'd be able to read some of them and be impressed and be like, "Wow, those are good discussions. I wish I had discussions like that." But I've
Yeah.
been largely unable to find discussions where I was like, impressed. And a lot of the discussions are in voice, which I think is meant for impressing audiences, not for actually making intellectual progress. Whereas the type of discussion I want to see is one where they're actually trying to seriously resolve a disagreement. And yeah, so one of the questions I was thinking about like a month ago was who has gained social status and popularity and so on using text discussions? Like who's the highest status intellectual who earned it by having good discussions? And like the best examples I could come up with were people like Scott Alexander, who has a blog and has discussions with people in his own blog comments.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Was
more
Scott
famous
Alex...
intellectuals, I don't know of good text discussion from them.
Okay. Was Scott Alexander the guy who got threatened to be doxxed by the New York Times?
Yeah, and then someone
Huh.
did dox him on Twitter.
Huh.
And the New York Times is still planning to go ahead and dox him, apparently. So, nasty stuff.
Yeah. It seems like Twitter is completely fine with the doxing because, like, okay, recent tweet about person Trump vote rally wanting to dox them, like literally a verified person. Bunch of people reported her, and Twitter said like, nope, no problem, no infraction. So it seems like Twitter's stance is doxing completely fine. I doubt they'd actually be equal about that.
Yeah, that's definitely not their stance. Their stance is, are you left wing or right wing? Because it makes a big difference to whether we like you. Anyways, yeah, so there's a lack of examples of high quality discussions from anyone that you can point to and be like, that's what discussions should be like. If only you could keep up in that kind of discussion, they would totally want to invite you in. If you could do that, that would be great. People would be like impressed and want to discuss with you, and the public intellectuals don't really do that very much. Like you don't see a Jordan Peterson or a Sam Harris or a Steven Pinker invite any low status person ever to have a text debate with them in public because they thought that particular person was really good and smart. Like, I don't know of examples of that. Maybe there's one somewhere, but I don't think it's like a common thing. It should happen like sometimes for some people. There's got to be some smart low status people out there who sometimes get found. So I think there's like a lack of mechanisms for it to be found, which makes sense because they're not even debating each other. I think they just don't actually have serious debates mostly.
They don't
And
even have like a policy like if you discuss my things for like 10 hours worth of time, then like I'll be willing to talk to you. Like you like literally have like 3 or 4 hours of content on just Jordan Peterson in video form, maybe like 8 or something.
yes,
Maybe, like
yes,
we're
they
reading
do
his
not
book.
specify ways you can get their attention. That is one of the things I talk about in some of my Paths Forward related articles, like using intellectual processes to combat bias.
Yeah.
Um, I'll put the link in chat. Yeah, so I talk about that kind of thing in this article and some of the other articles. And yeah, people could come up with filters. Like, another way you can do it is like, for every book you read, I'll give you one response. And then, that helps you not get overwhelmed. Or for every book from this list of books I like that you read, I'll give you one response. If you do something like that, you could talk to these people, and it's not going to take up a lot of time because they only get to respond after they read a book, You
Yeah.
don't get overwhelmed as much. There's a lot of things you could do to cut down on having too much attention and too many people who want to talk to you and so on,
There's like so many
if you needed to.
things, but like people don't actually, like intellectuals don't actually do anything. You can even have like talk about my book for 5 hours in YouTube videos, and then you can just like go to their YouTube channel, like look at videos, see like, oh yeah, that's about 5 hours of them talking about my book, and then like just quickly skim it to make sure they're not cheating, and then like boom, big filter. How many people are actually going
Yeah.
to do that?
They're not looking for what filters would be good, how can I set them up, what would be a strong enough filtering system. Their filtering system is social status. They're not looking for a rational filtering system to replace social status, and they do not want to have written rules that they would have to abide by and have transparency for and so on. They like to have unwritten rules that give them the power to play favorites and act on whims and not get backed into a corner because they can avoid anything that seems hard and so on.
Hmm.
The reading books example I particularly like because that was how I talked to Thomas Sawes primarily. He didn't ask me to do it, but what I did was I would read one of his books and then I would write him an email about it. And then I'd read another book and write him an email about that one and so on. And I kept doing that because he has like 30 books.
Okay, so you like talk to him on the book. Hmm. Thomas Sawes. You like read the books and then like talked to him about the books. Like you just emailed him or something.
Yeah. Right. I didn't have to do it that way. Like he was responding to me, but most of the times when I brought up a new topic, I just read one of his books and then said stuff about it. It seemed like a good way to have discussions.
Yeah, it's like brought up one of the topics in this book and then like discussions about it. Seems like a good way to have discussions. Like you read a book and then like brought up a topic you thought was interesting or liked or wanted to discuss. Okay.
Okay, so right, what I was going to add was I know of at least one public intellectual
At least one.
who knows how to use quoting and knows how to have text discussions.
Okay. One who can do it, at least.
His name is David Deutsch. He's written approximately 4,000 forum posts, many of which were emails with quoting and so on.
Yeah, I figured it out right before you said it.
Right. So you can look at that and you can think to yourself, well, he likes that type of discussion. You know, he's in favor of this. He wants this type of discussion. He's famous enough to talk to fancy people. And how many discussions like this did he get with them in public? Zero. I think it's basically zero public ones. So how many in private? If there are zero in public. You can probably estimate not a large number.
Maybe
Right?
like
If there were a lot of them
one.
in private, probably some people would be like, we can talk in public. We're just saying good ideas. Why would we hide it? That should happen sometimes. And David was certainly willing to talk in public because he wrote like 4,000 public posts or so. So I think that is a piece of evidence about how much public intellectuals want these kinds of discussions because David was a super fan of this kind of discussion and then never seemed to get any public intellectuals to do it with him.
Yeah,
And
something seems really wrong. This seems really bad. Like, why
yes,
doesn't anyone do this?
I do think this is a big deal. I've known about this for a long time. It is a major problem. And furthermore, suppose that David was getting private discussions with high status people like Sam Harris, Dawkins, whatever. I want to pick on them, but they're just like standard names, but they stand for anyone. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like you could pick on someone else, like Kahneman and Tversky or someone if you wanted. Anyways,
I was trying to think of one of the ARI people, and I thought Ellsworth M.
right, so David wrote approximately 4,000 forum posts in this sort of text discussion style with quoting and trying to have a good discussion.
Yeah.
And, approximately all of them are with low status people. So you can imagine how much availability of high status people did he have in private to have better discussions with. Presumably not that much, or he would have been too busy having his private discussions that were higher quality. Right? So it seems like he had a lot of free time where he couldn't find enough discussion with the fancy people.
Okay, so I think FH kind of has some things about like what happens to people who like actually try to do good things. But I was gonna try to ask the question of like how many good people are there who actually want to become reasonable, how many people actually try, like what happens to them, and then I think FH kind of like shows what happens to them some, mostly with just like the newspapers though, because that's like Gail Wynand in the newspapers is like a major thing, so it would mostly show stuff about that and architecture.
Yeah, it does talk about some of the difficulties and the ways people go wrong. I do want to give some credit to Harry Binswanger because he is a public intellectual who runs a forum where he has text discussions with quoting. However, the large majority of the discussions are with low status people. He does have a few other high status objectivists on the forum who occasionally write things, but not that much. And it is, it's objectivism specific, so he doesn't have like high status people who are non-objectivists on it. But it is a public forum. You have to pay, but it's public. I don't like him, and I'm banned from his forum for annoying him by arguing with him. But anyways, he actually is a public intellectual who has discussions. However, he didn't get famous by having good discussions. His fame comes from other sources, and then he used his fame to get people to join his forum. But he has maintained the forum, so the subscribers are like satisfied with it. They like reading his stuff. So there's something good there, but it's it's an uncommon example. And yeah, my other examples are people like Slate Star Codex, Scott Alexander. I think Elijah Yudkowsky used to debate with people in comments on overcoming bias unless wrong, but I don't think he's done that very much recently.
Something Andrew Lukowski less wrong. What?
Elijah Yudkowsky, I believe that he used to post in comments and discuss with his audience, and that was part of how he became popular, but I think he mostly stopped doing it years ago. Whereas Scott Alexander, I think, was still doing it like as of when he took his blog down. Was still talking with his blog commenters. And yeah. There are like the occasional exception, like so Robin Hansen Flume, is that how you spell it? Yeah, this one. So there was some sort of debate between Robin Hansen and Elijah Yudkowsky versus what's his name? Oh, it was just between them. For some reason I was thinking it was with that other guy, the economist. Brian Kaplan. I think they had some sort of debate with Brian Kaplan. One of them did at some point. Anyways, so there's like the occasional thing like this. where there's some amount of text debating. It often takes the form of like a few blog posts back and forth. Yeah, this says the original series of blog posts. You occasionally see people write back and forth blog posts and argue with each other. And there exist like the occasional text discussions that are pretty high quality and are between high status people, but it's not a common thing. Like, it's notable that this debate exists. Similarly, by the way, if you go to my website, ebooks, why is it not load? Oh, it did load. Okay, anyways. Right, so Aubrey de Grey had a 210-page discussion with me. And he's a high status intellectual, and he was willing to have a discussion with like quoting and email and so on. But he just did it like the one time with one person. It's not like a thing he wants to do regularly with lots of people. And similarly, Robert Spillane, who is much lower status, but he is an author, and he had a 92-page discussion with me before he got fed up with me. He's a Thomas Saw's fan colleague. That's why we were discussing.
Okay, so why did he and Aubrey de Grey stop discussing with you?
Because resolving disagreements is too hard and they give up. People give up and they get frustrated when you don't agree with them fast enough. And they don't, but what they don't do is they don't ever say, I made the case by saying X, Y, and Z. I think that case is like crushing and you should concede now, and it's enough information for you to change your mind, and you're being unreasonable by not doing that. They never get to that point of saying that I'm doing something clearly wrong and that's why they're stopping. They don't express an impasse of like, we're stuck because of the following impasse. Do you have any way to solve it? If not, let's stop. They just sort of get frustrated and stop and don't want to really explain quite why.
Okay, so an impasse chain is like, we're at an impasse, let's try to fix that, and then, oh, the fixing that problem had an impasse, let's try to fix that problem, and then like, oh, we're on the third impasse, let's try to fix this one, then like, oops, fourth impasse, seems to be failing a lot, let's try to fix this one, and you can kind of get on an impasse chain, is that it?
Yeah, that's my impasse chain method, but what I was saying is they don't even do one impasse usually. If they do
Huh.
one impasse, that would be better. But
Huh.
it's usually they just leave the discussion after 0 stated impasses.
Huh.
So like there exists some things, but there's a shortage of this. Like the amount of stuff that I've been showing, like these debates and things, I would definitely put in the shortage category. There's not enough discussion like this in the world. It's too hard to come by, it's too inaccessible, even for high status people. Not very many high status people actually want to do it with anyone. Not just they don't do it with low status people, but they just don't usually do it with anyone. So there's some, but not enough. You can't just list like, here's 1,000 examples of that stuff. There's too many to read them all. You know, it's not that kind of situation.
Okay, so if like a lot of the intellectuals at least had like some kind of farm, like Harry Binswanger, and would that be like a fucking huge improvement?
Yes. Most of them do not participate at any discussion forum, not their own and not anyone else's, because they don't actually want to have discussions that much. So they don't think about problems like, how can I put limits on it so the discussions don't take too long, and how can I organize them to make them high quality, and so on. How can I use them for content on my YouTube channel? They just mostly don't want to do them because they don't seem to have good enough methods to make their discussions reach conclusions. I think that's a large part of it. And another large part of it is that the majority of public intellectuals are fakers and social climbers who aren't actually that smart. Okay, so we went through his thing. My thing looks long. I think it might be time to stop. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be fine with stopping, yeah.
Okay. Alright, yeah, let's stop then. Okay, so then you're going to be gone for several days. So I will probably just finish the tree up by myself tomorrow or the next day or something.
Yeah.
Okay, ending stream.